My name's Adam McLaughlin, and this is the Church Marketing Ideas Podcast. Practical ideas to help your church build trust in your community. Welcome to the Church Marketing Ideas Podcast, Episode 8. You can track down all of my notes today, my conversation with Phil Cooke. Track down all of our notes at churchmarketingideas.com/008. And while you're at churchmarketingideas.com, you may have noticed that at the end of every episode, we answer a question from one of our listeners. And today's question happens to be about how do we reach more people on Instagram? So look for that at the end of the show. But if you have a question, then you can always go to churchmarketingideas.com and ask your question right there. And we promise we'll answer every single question that comes in. And some of them will even get featured right here on the podcast. So just go to churchmarketingideas.com/008 for today's show notes. And while you're there, you can ask any question that you have about church communications and church marketing. Well, I'm looking forward to my conversation today with Phil Cooke, founder and CEO of Cooke Media Group. Phil Cooke has produced media programming in nearly 70 countries. He's produced many of the most influential Christian TV programs in history, and his book, The Way Back: How Christians Blew Our Credibility and How We Get It Back, challenges Christians to confront the real reasons our faith is losing influence in the culture. He's been called one of the most innovative communicators of our generation, and after this word from our sponsor, you'll hear my interview with Phil Cooke.
Hey, it's Michael from Church Fuel, and if you listen too carefully, you'll probably hear beeps and buzzers and announcements because I'm recording this in an airport on the go from one meeting to another. And I know you can relate because that's the life of a pastor, right? That's the life of a church leader. You're going from one thing to another, juggling a lot of balls, working on a lot of things that are all eternally significant. And with your kind of schedule, it can be so tough to find time to actually work on getting better, to work on your church, to work on leadership development and improvement. And we had that in mind when we built Church Fuel. It's a monthly membership program. All the training is bite-sized. There's courses, there's resources. We'll help you create a ministry plan, shrink it all down to just a couple pages, use it properly. It is really leadership development for people who are busy and kind of on the go. And so whether you're in an airport today or you're doing sermon prep today or you got a big task list, put something on your task list to check out Church Fuel. Go to churchfuel.com, see all the courses and resources that you get when you join. We'd love to serve you. See you on the inside. Bye.
Phil Cooke, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. I just got back from filming in Asia. We were on a huge tour of filming in India, China, and Mongolia. So it worked out really, really well. And I'm kind of hunkered down here in a sweater. It's rainy in LA today. So I thought I'll just sit here and focus on this podcast.
Well, I'm in Canada, so I would take rainy LA over Canada just about any day. But tell us a little bit about some of your current projects and what you've been up to recently.
Well, we were in Asia because we're working on a television series on the rise of Christianity on every continent on the planet. And we're doing it with a group of producers, and the episode we got was Asia. So we were filming in India, Mongolia, Korea, and Japan. And that's a lot to cover in an hour television episode, but it's really interesting when you dig deep into these places. Plus, it's always kind of fun filming in places like China where they're not terribly excited about you being there to film. And so it was quite interesting. But now we're starting the editing process, and I think it'll be a fascinating show because people know so little about how the influence Christianity really had throughout Asia.
Yeah, and sounds like something that I would love to learn more about. We'll make sure we get all the notes, the links, and we'll put them in the show notes for our listeners. So I want to talk a little bit about your book, The Way Back, because so many churches don't know how to build influence. We know we're lacking it. We know we need it, but we're just really not sure where to start. If a church realizes the importance of building influence in their community, which I think the reason why should be obvious, but give us a little blurb on the reason why, and then what is the starting point for that conversation for them?
Well, it's an interesting question. I'm a media guy, and my co-writer, Jonathan Bach, is a media guy. He's a marketing expert and here in Hollywood. And we always think of things in terms of branding or marketing perspective. So we've always been, Christianity's losing such influence in the culture. Why are we being dismissed? A few years ago, we were really criticized heavily. Today, we're virtually ignored. And so it's just interesting that we're almost at the point where we have no influence in the culture at all. And I looked over the last 30 or 40 years of how we've tried to engage the culture. And really, I couldn't find a single strategy that's moved the dial in a positive direction in any area. We've tried boycotts. We tried, if your employees didn't say Merry Christmas and said Happy Holidays, we're going to not buy your coffee. Well, that didn't make much of an impact.
Right.
We tried to boycott one major denomination here in America, boycotted Walt Disney Studios for about 7 years. And problem was, during that 7 years, Disney's their profits went through the roof. So it did the exact opposite of what this denomination thought it would do. And so we tried these really dumb things over the years that just simply haven't worked. And John and I went back and started doing some research on when was a time in history when the church had a huge impact on the culture. And we had to go all the way back to the early church, the first generation of Christians. And the interesting thing about that is it was illegal to be a Christian. You could, in many cities in the Roman Empire, you could kill a Christian on sight in the street and suffer no consequences for that at all. It's perfectly legal. They were hunted down. They had no money. They had no influence at all. And yet those people completely changed the Western world. I mean, within a remarkably short time, Christianity became the dominant faith in the Western world. And how did it happen? And so we discovered that, in those days, there were plenty of things that the Christians hated. The infanticide was a big problem. Abortion wasn't too regular, although they did have abortions in ancient Rome, which would have been a grisly procedure. But most likely a child was born, most often a girl, and they would just take it out to die of exposure on the wall of the city or beyond, leave it abandoned in a field. Christians saw it and hated it, but they couldn't legislate anything. They couldn't be involved in politics. They had no influence, but they could act. And so what they would do is go out under cover of night and take in these young abandoned infants and raise them as their own, bring them into their families. And people in the church community would contribute money to help support that family. And we just discovered that there were other things. Plague hit. Romans were famous for running out of town. They were cowards. Even one Roman emperor wrote a letter talking about what cowards Romans were. But these Christians, these strange Christians, would go to ground zero to minister to people they didn't even know at the risk of their own life. And so many of these things happened that suddenly it really forced the Romans to rethink who these Christians are and who is this God they talk about all the time. And it wasn't politics, it wasn't boycotts, it wasn't criticism, it wasn't any of those negative things that we normally do today when we see something we don't like in the culture. It was simply acting on what God's called us to be and do what God's called us to do. And we just discovered our takeaway from the process of writing that book, the way back, is that if we're really going to change the culture, if we're going to really impact the culture, what are the things that we could do today that would so impact this culture, it would force them to rethink who these Christians are and who is this God we serve. And that's really what started us on that long journey.
So in some of the examples that you gave of the boycotts, we're talking about entire denominations. And I think sometimes churches feel like we need to have a whole group of churches do something in order to make an influence in the city. But what can an individual church start doing? How can they determine how they can become influential in the city, even if everybody else in the city is shying away from participating?
I think the first thing to understand is that we live in a media-driven culture. We live in a digital age, which has pretty much changed everything about how we communicate, including how we communicate the gospel. And I think that, when I was in India filming for this television episode, I spoke at the Indian Christian Media Conference that was happening there in Hyderabad, India. And one of the tracks that we had was based on the fact that it doesn't matter the size of your church. It could be 5 members, 20 members, 50 members. It doesn't matter how small your church may be. You can still use media to effectively impact the local community that you're in. And so I think I always tell churches, start with something like social media. I find that pastors just don't know much about it. They don't know what to do with it. And if you don't bring on a high school kid and talk to them, trust me, they know a lot about it. I always go for professional experienced people, but if you're just starting from scratch, talk to young people. They know how it works. And it's just so interesting today that you can start conversations on social media that have a huge impact. I got a call from a pastor just the other day that said, I've never, ever responded to people who reach out to me on Facebook. He said, we post Facebook at the church. I'll say things occasionally, but people respond. I never go back and talk to those people. He said, but the other day I had a woman who asked me some questions about our church, and I just felt led, maybe I should respond to her. And so I did. He said, and lo and behold, that woman came to church on Sunday. And he said, then lo and behold, at the end of the service, she came forward and accepted Christ. And then he said, lo and behold, the next day on Monday, he just got a call that she had been killed in an auto accident. Oh. And he said, I don't want to sound cheesy or overly spiritual, but I often think of what would have happened had I never reached out to her on social media and started that process happening. So I think, and I've seen people have just found churches, put their marriages back together, found alcoholic or drug treatment programs, just so many things through social media that, we all know there are idiots out there on social media, and there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of politics and things that I don't like to follow. But there's no question that if a church can really grasp how to use social media well, it can have an impact. And that's where I'd start. And literally, like I said, 5 church members, no problem. You can still start with a message out there on social media that we just forget the exponential. I say something on social media, Adam, you then retweet it or repost it, and it goes to your followers, and it just explodes before long. And so it's just amazing the impact people can actually have.
Yeah, and I think that works for us in a really big way. And unfortunately, sometimes that works against us because we see churches who have taken a public stance about things that are very divisive and not necessarily biblical. And you and I could probably, and there's no need to, but we probably could think of our own quick list. So how do we as a church distinguish ourselves from the negativity that other people have leveraged social media to use?
I think that's a great question. And, honestly, I'm challenged with that all the time because I'll see things in the news that I feel like I should share this, that, and it's political. It has nothing to do with what I do. And here's my thinking. One of the things we came to when we wrote the book the way back is that, you're exactly right. Politics can be so divisive. And here's the problem. Be involved in, I believe in being involved in politics. Vote. That's an incredible gift that we have in a democracy. However, the minute we drag God into the church, or we drag the church into politics, we know, for instance, that this country is pretty much 50-50 conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat. So the minute you drag the church into politics, you just alienated half the country. How does that help? We have to be very sensitive about how we get involved in our social media and other ways as Christians, because people look at us as Christians. You know what? I live and work in Hollywood, and even my industry friends and people that I know who are not even remotely Christians, no matter what I'm posting, they know, oh, Phil, he's a Christian. I know him. And so whatever I say is going to have that Christian vibe to it, from their perspective. So I would just tell people watching or listening today, just be real sensitive about how much you get involved in politics, how much you share, and how you believe we need to do it in a much more positive way. Give people hope. I just think that's so incredibly important. That we just, and trust me, like I said, I get sucked into it all the time, because I'll see something, I'll get upset about it, and I'll think, we need to say something about this. And then I realize I just alienated a third of my followers, or a third of people that I could have an impact on. So I just want to be real strategic, very sensitive about how I use social media to communicate the message of the gospel.
Now, what about in a situation where somebody has been burned by a church, and so now they lump all churches together in a single category? And now they won't listen to your church because they were burned by another church. Or maybe they personally weren't burned by a church, but they saw somebody retweet somebody from another comment from another church who posted an Instagram post on Twitter, and it got shared to Facebook. How do we distinguish ourselves for somebody who has got a bad taste in their mouth about church in general?
You know what? There's always going to be those people, and I meet them all the time, and they're always going to be around. It's a sad testament to how many churches have really burned people or really treat people poorly. But I don't worry about trying to fix that too much, because I do think I see a lot of people using that as a lazy excuse, rather than actually engage with a church or investigate or research the gospel. They're just going to say, I went to a church that was stupid when I was a kid, so I'm never going to do that again. Well, that's an incredibly lazy way to do anything. I wouldn't do that with a restaurant. I wouldn't do it with a football team. I wouldn't do it with anything else I follow. So why would I do it with church? So I think, first of all, we just need to not worry. Sometimes people just take the time to let it work out. But one thing I would say that I've discovered more than anything, my wife, Kathleen, is on the national board of the Salvation Army. And I've discovered that just loving people, taking care of their needs, that has such an impact. I read when we were writing our book, I saw a study that something like 78% of people in America don't know their neighbor's names.
Wow.
And so don't worry about witnessing to your neighbor. Just go over and say hi. Just introduce yourself. Take a pie over there one day, particularly at a time like Thanksgiving or Christmas or some other holiday. Just go over there and engage. So many people feel obligated to take a tract with them, or I need to take my Bible and share the gospel. No. Just start by being a normal human being and developing a relationship. Rodney Stark, the brilliant writer and the brilliant scholar, said that the single greatest reason people convert is because they don't just suddenly wake up one morning and have a revelation that God loves them. In most cases, they start the process because they think, wow, I really want to be like that guy. And so in the book, we encourage people, if Christians got serious about marriage, one of the things in our culture that we don't have anything to be proud of is our statistics on divorce. Christian divorces are just incredibly tragic. But if we got serious, what if we became the only country that had amazing marriages, just amazing families, because we put in that work to do it? And I know there's certain circumstances that can't be avoided. But the truth is, if we put in the effort to become known as people that had amazing marriages and amazing families, people would look at us and say, I want to be like those guys. I mean, my wife had an amazing situation with an acting agent. She was an actor for many years here in Hollywood, and she had a meeting with a big, high-powered agent one day, and he was asking her about herself, and she just talked about her marriage, her family, her marriage. She said, we'd been married at the time. We'd been married like 25 years. And he says, whoa, stop. He said, explain that again. I don't get that. He said, the one thing I've tried to do in my whole career is have a good marriage. And I've been through 3 of them. He said, I cannot have a marriage to save my life. How do you do it? And suddenly just that conversation started her being able to share about what makes our marriage work. So I just really believe with all my heart that if we could do some things that made people want to be more like us, then, stop being so judgmental so quickly. Stop being, phony. Stop, being a jerk in so many cases. And trust me, as Christians, we become jerks sometimes because we see things happening in a culture we don't like, but we don't respond in the way we should. And we just need to become people that the world looks at and thinks, wow, I don't know if I believe in that God thing, but I sure would love to be like that person. That's where it starts the conversation. Sorry, I didn't mean to rant. I didn't mean to go into such a long explanation.
No, it's perfect. And I think that one of the ways these ideas are kind of merge is when we use media to help the community understand what we're doing to make a difference in the community. But the pushback that a lot of churches get is, we're not feeding the poor so that we have a video to post on Facebook.
Right.
And so it's kind of this pushback between, okay, we gave everybody the same color t-shirts with our logo on it and we took video of them. Was our motivation really to help and feed somebody for Christmas, or was our motivation to create content so we could say how great we are in the community? Talk to me a little bit about that balance, because I'm not sure anybody is perfect at this.
I totally get what you mean. I had a major ministry leader come to me a few years ago. There was a hurricane down in the Gulf of Mexico, and this major ministry leader flew in his private jet down to the hurricane site, had about 4 or 5 tractor trailer trucks filled with food, which is a good thing, had them go down there. He flew down in his private jet, was escorted in a Cadillac Escalade out to the site where the hurricane hit, and the tornado or hurricane hit. his video guys got footage of him handing out baskets of groceries to people for about 20 minutes. Then he got back in his jet and flew back home. And they figured that the cost of his jet fuel was more expensive than the cost of 3 or 4 truckloads of food to go down and help those hurricane victims. And so the world looks at things like that and says, what a bunch of phonies, what a bunch of idiots. So there's no question that we need to think more about, in social media, you're exactly right. My wife made a comment about this the other day. She said, we were watching the news last night, and here in LA, there was a bunch of NFL football players that were down at a homeless shelter. But of course, they had on their jerseys and they were having video taken of them. And she said, Thanksgiving is really not a time of giving. It's a time to talk about how you're giving on social media and promote yourself ultimately. And so we just have to get away from that and actually do the work. And again, the smallest church in the country can go out and do something for somebody. And I don't mind talking about that stuff on social media and showing it. I just want to be really sensitive with our clients, the churches and ministries that we work with our team here at Cooke Media Group. We're just really sensitive about how we want to show that happening out there. It's not about promoting the church or them. It's about actually doing something. And we share it because we want other people to be inspired to do something like that. We want to give other people ideas for how to do it and what they can do. But one of the things I do love, I have to say, Adam, is I love unusual outreaches. I'm a huge fan of really off-the-wall, unusual outreach ideas. And so I would encourage local churches and ministries, do things that people don't expect. Do unusual things that just would surprise people. We have a group of Christian people in Hollywood, friends of ours in the entertainment industry and here in Hollywood, that have just started doing what we call a Craigslist Christmas. We about 7 years ago, John Bach, my co-writer, just one guy, put an ad in Craigslist a couple weeks before Christmas and said, hey, if you're in LA and you're struggling to provide for your family and your kids during Christmas, I'd love to know. And probably some people thought he was a nut or a pervert or something, but he had a couple single moms reach out to him. And he and his wife, Kelly, met them at a Target, public place at a Target, and took them through, got them clothes, toys, gave them a gift card. Next year, he called me and my wife, Kathleen, said, you do it with us. And the next year, we got more people. So this last year, we had about 17 or 18 couples or single people, all professional entertainment industry people here in Hollywood, meet at that Target. And we had about 24 people that had come in. Some were single moms or dads. Some were grandparents raising their grandkids, all of them desperate. And man, just that little act transformed their Christmas. And so I just would encourage churches, think of unusual things that, it doesn't have to be the same old thing all the time. Think of how and one of the things I'll say, Adam, and shut up, is that we live in different places with different needs. So if you're in Michigan, or you're in Canada, or you're in LA, or you're in Atlanta, there are different types of needs in each of those cities, or each of those states, or each of those countries. Find out what the need is in your area and do something unusual. Partner with the Salvation Army if you need to. Partner with other churches, whatever, but go out there and make a difference.
Okay, well, I'm not letting you off the hook too quick on that answer because I can only imagine the spectrum of unusual outreaches that you've gotten to see. So hit me with some pretty cool, unusual, attention-grabbing outreach ideas.
Well, yeah, probably the coolest one I've ever seen, and I would think off the top of my head, because I just adore this thing. I met a guy from Canada, from up your way, who had this was maybe 10 years ago, or maybe 15, remember when boom boxes were popular, ghetto blasters were a big deal, big old radios. He had come up with a secret kind of a little factory, if you will, where they would take out the guts of the radio, put in a low power radio station transmitter, and then they would put a hard drive in it with the scripture being read, just somebody reading the Bible. And they figured out that they could get pieces of copper pipe, and they would get about a 10-foot section of copper pipe and cut it up into smaller pieces, and so they could be screwed together. And they left enough of the radio in that if somebody challenged them on it, they could turn on the radio and it would play. But what they would do is they would go into what at the time were closed countries. So they would go into North Korea, they would go into Iraq, they would go into Iran, they would go into places where normal missionaries couldn't go or the gospel couldn't go. And they would They would rent an apartment in the middle of the city, the main major city, and they would set this thing on a table, plug it into the wall, find a empty spot on the radio dial, put this antenna together with these copper pieces. They said they could always tell the customs guy, hey, I'm trying to fix my plumbing in my apartment. But they would get that and turn it into an antenna, and it would have about a 15-mile throw in any direction.
Wow.
And it was literally a low-power radio station that was transmitting the gospel being read 24/7. And they had them in like 7 different closed major cities around the world. And it would take authorities about 6 months to triangulate and figure out where in the world this thing's coming from. And they would bust into the apartment, but nobody was there. They'd just rented the apartment through a mailbox and walked away and never gone back. And so I just love things like that, to get the gospel out there and get the message. So that was probably the most unique thing I've ever been involved in, and I loved it.
It's an incredible idea, and we could probably spend hours just talking about some of the things that you've seen, because
Oh, yeah.
I know you've had all kinds of exposure to all kinds of different churches and all over the world. And one of the things that I heard you speak at a conference last year, and one of the things you talked about was having pastors leverage their personal social media to build influence in their community. Dig into that a little bit for me, because a lot of pastors, number one, they may not see the importance of using their personal social media. And number two, if they see the importance, they don't know what kind of stuff to post on there. Yeah. So give me some real practical ideas.
That is a really great question. And here's what I would say. Number one, people like to follow people. I mean, certainly they'll follow your church on social media. They'll follow the Salvation Army on social media. They'll follow some other ministry or organization. However, more than anything else, they want to follow people. So when a pastor or other church leaders start getting involved personally in social media, sharing the gospel, it really makes a difference. And the other thing I would say along that line is, don't just tweet out scriptures. Don't just tweet out, that picture of you preaching with a quote on it. I want an intimate behind the scenes look at what your life is like. One thing I've discovered, maybe some social media experts out there will argue with me, but one of the single biggest reasons I've discovered that people follow you on social media is because they would like to know what it's like to be you. You're the pastor of a major church. You're a communication director at a church. You're a designer at a church or a ministry or whatever it is you do. People love to know about that. So I want pastors not just to, if I hear another, today's the day the Lord hath made, let us rejoice and be glad in it, I'll blow my brains out. Scripture is important. But if we just mindlessly promote that on social media, people will stop following you. I'd rather know, what are you struggling with as you're preparing a new message series for your church on Sunday? Or what's going through your mind before you walk out to do the funeral of somebody you've loved at the church for 20 years? What are you seeing out there among young couples struggling to keep their marriages together? Those kind of insights, that's what I'd like to see a pastor or a ministry leader share on social media. If they could do that, it'd be amazing. The other part of this, I would say, is never forget the power of short videos. And, whether it's a professionally done short video or just something you do with your phone, we're discovering that short videos have become the #1 marketing tool in America. Secular businesses, nonprofits, churches are using them to share their message. And the statistics are staggering. 55% of people that watch a short video want to find out more. I mean, what does that say about your church or the cause of Christ? That's amazing statistic. Facebook wants to compete with YouTube, so they've tweaked their algorithm. So when you post a video, it'll get a lot more viewers than when you just post a normal Facebook post. So there's a lot, and it's so easy just pulling out and doing a short video on your phone, or having your video, if you have a video person at the church or somebody that you work with, shoot the video. And let me say this about videos, testimonies are insanely powerful. I've just discovered over all these years of working in media that, I'll tell you, people are more captivated by other people's testimony than anything in the world. I'm glad this year, I'm glad your ministry feeds 100 people a month. I'm glad your ministry does this in China or wherever. But don't give me statistics on your video. Show me the story of a life that's transformed because of what you do. And let me tell you something, I'll watch that forever. And so I think if we learn to use the power of testimonies, real stories of people whose lives have been changed because of your church or because of your ministry or because of your message, That's a powerful thing. So I really do encourage pastors and ministry leaders. You're exactly right, Adam. So many people think, well, yeah, our church has a social media feed or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, but I don't really get involved in that. Let me tell you something. If you do, I would encourage you at least put your toe in the water and try it out, because it's going to have a dramatic impact. And once you do, don't just tweet the same old stuff. Really give me a unique behind the scenes look. I mean, think of it this way. At most churches, people can't just call up the pastor and say, hey, come meet me at Starbucks and let's talk. So social media allows you to give people that behind the scenes look and kind of a behind the scenes conversation at what you're doing. So people love it more than you ever think. I had one pastor that just did not want to go on Facebook at all. I finally talked him into it. First time he posted, some lady responded, and I said, well, you go back and talk to that lady. Just say something to her on Facebook. And he did. And she said, oh my gosh, my pastor talks to me on Facebook. This is the most amazing church I've ever been to in my life. So you forget how excited people get about hearing from the pastor or church leaders when it comes to social media. So I'd encourage people, get involved.
Phil, I know you're really active on social media, and I know there are all kinds of different ways that people connect with you and media, and they can get your help at their church or just use your blog as resources. What are all the different ways, or what's the best way for them to connect with you if they have more questions about building influence in their community?
Well, our company site is cookmediagroup.com. However, reach out to me through my personal blog, which is Phil Cooke. I'm Cooke with an E, PHILCOOKE.com. And I'm blogging every week about all the stuff that people face and trying to get their message out there. And a lot of it has to do with secular stuff too. If you just feel God's called you to do something important in your life, I'm writing about how to make it happen, how to get it out there, how to get that message out there today. And so anyone listening, I'd encourage you to go check it out. And because you can also connect to my books and other things, my speaking schedule and stuff I'm doing there. But that's really the heartbeat of everything I do is my blog at philcooke.com. And it's my therapist, actually, Adam. It's my therapist. After working with so many churches and ministries for a living, if I didn't have my blog, I might have killed myself years ago. But it really makes a difference.
Yeah, I find the same with my blog. And I'm asking all my guests this, so I'd love to find out, which is your favorite social media network and how do we connect with you there?
Well, that's interesting. It's funny. Every social media network, as you know, it reaches different types of people. I find that leaders, by and large, leaders are still on Twitter. And if they want to reach, the Rick Warrens of the world and people like that, but they're also migrating to Instagram at a great deal. I have a lot of issues with Facebook, just the structure and the way it's designed. And there's just a lot of things about Facebook I'm not a big fan of. But I'm on it. I have more fun with Instagram than anything else. I actually break a lot of my rules on Instagram because I like posting and I can't help that. And but I think people can reach out to me through Instagram or Twitter is probably a really good way to do it. And I always respond. It may take me a while because I travel an enormous amount. I think I'll hit 200,000 miles next week traveling this year. But it might take me a bit, but I do respond. So feel free to reach out. I'm probably Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are the three areas I focus on most. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't use that a lot. So yeah, I have more fun with Instagram. So I usually spend more time there than anyplace else.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for hanging out. And I can attest that your Instagram follow is a lot of fun. And I love just seeing some of the behind the scenes. I was watching this week while you were in Mongolia and you were talking about what it's like to, be in China where they're now welcoming to filmmakers. And so thank you so much for giving us the behind the scenes through your Instagram. And thank you so much for hanging out on the podcast today.
Well, I love what you do. I love the podcast and I love the blog. And so keep it up. I think more people need to hear the message that you have. And we need to keep having these conversations about how to use social media, use traditional media, use other media, short video to get that message out there because we live in a digital age. And it's happening whether you like it or not, or whether you want it or not. We're moving forward. So it's important to learn these things. So thanks for letting me come on and rant.
Hey, it's Michael from Church Fuel. And if you listen too carefully, you'll probably hear beeps and buzzers and announcements because I'm recording this in an airport on the go from one meeting to another. And I know you can relate because that's the life of a pastor, right? That's the life of a church leader. You're going from one thing to another, juggling a lot of balls, working on a lot of things that are all eternally significant. And with your kind of schedule, it can be so tough to find time to actually work on getting better, to work on your church, to work on leadership development and improvement. And we had that in mind when we built Church Fuel. It's a monthly membership program. All the training is bite-sized. There's courses, there's resources. We'll help you create a ministry plan, shrink it all down to just a couple pages, use it properly. It is really leadership development for people who are busy and kind of on the go. And so whether you're in an airport today or you're doing sermon prep today or you got a big task list, put something on your task list to check out Church Fuel. Go to churchfuel.com, see all the courses and resources that you get when you join. We'd love to serve you. See you on the inside. Bye.
Hi, my name's Kevin. How can I get better organic views on my church's Instagram posts, since there isn't a share button on Instagram, so fewer posts get shared compared with our Facebook? Thanks.
Hey Kevin, one of the best ways to get more exposure on Instagram is to use hashtags and location tags. And so when you create a post, you're going to want to put in the description some kind of hashtag that talks about what your event is or what you're promoting or what you're talking about. Not always event driven. It could be something, scripture about love. It could be a comment that your pastor made about parenting. It could be an event that's coming up that's specifically geared to singles. So you can use a hashtag, and that means that Instagram will see when somebody interacts with a hashtag and put your post in front of them as well. So if somebody has interacted with a lot of posts that use the hashtag parenting and you use the hashtag parenting, Instagram is more likely to show that to the person who's viewed other posts about parenting when they use the little search box at the bottom, the little magnifying glass that allows them to create a feed of all different content that Instagram thinks they might like. The other thing is the location tag. So Instagram will often consider where somebody is physically and geographically show them posts that are happening near them or around them. So I always recommend the location tag at your church or wherever your event's taking place. And then I also recommend a hashtag that talks about the topic of what your post is about. Now, if you are doing an event or an outreach or you tag somebody else, tag the person that relates to in your community. So if you're doing an outreach at the food bank, tag the food bank. If you're doing an outreach at a shelter, tag the shelter. If you're simply just doing staff meeting at a certain restaurant, tag the restaurant. And it's more likely that that restaurant or that homeless shelter or the food bank is going to see your tag because you tag them. And then that increases the chances they're going to share it. If they never see it, then the chances of them sharing it is 0. If they get to see it, then that to some extent increases the chance that they'll want to share that post with their own following, giving you more reach. Now, on every podcast, we love to answer your questions. If you have a question, just go to churchmarketingideas.com, click the button that says Ask a Question. We promise we'll respond to every single question, and a few of them will show up on our podcast. Coming up on the next episode.
Yeah, the first 3 mistakes that I had written down in preparation for this conversation had to do with social. And the reason being is that social is, of all the digital endeavors churches find themselves invested in, social is one that almost every church has, similar to a website. But where websites have software, templates, WordPress, Nucleus, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, whatever, where existing professionals have created frameworks for churches, social is kind of like this free-for-all. And churches know they have to do it, but the person that gets thrust into that role is maybe the worship pastor or the youth pastor or the lead pastor who's the only person who's paid on staff. And social media is incredibly difficult. Like, I saw a tweet that was describing social several months ago, and it was like, here's what social is not: copywriting, graphic design, videography, communications, PR, and it went on and on. And it was like, social is not any one of these things. It is all of them. And social media is just incredibly difficult. And unfortunately, the people in our churches that are in charge of it are people that are not formally trained in that. And so we see a lot of missteps in that realm, which is unfortunate because of how much time we all spend on social. There's so much opportunity there,